Welcome back to the nation's capital sports show, where it's most definitely on Arlington Independent Media. You can catch us on Comcast 69, of course, Fios 38, also on the Stitcher Radio Network, the award-winning Stitcher Radio Network at Stitcher.com. We have Vincent Charles, Afshin Banab, and Chris Jerry. Let's talk about those Washington Redskins. Robert Griffin III, he came, he saw, but did he conquer? 4 for 6 on his connection with Pierre Garçon for 18, then, of course, a 20-yard touchdown. Afshin.
I don't think he conquered, but he put on a nice display, and it was what Mike Shanahan exactly wanted. He wanted RG3, Robert Griffin III, to come out there and perform well and do exactly what Shanahan wanted to do, and it was pretty much, limited, but he got the job done.
That's right. You got to like the way he performed, Vincent, against the Buffalo Bills. Winning that game, of course, 7-6, and of course we saw the potential connection in regards to the RG3 and Garçon connection.
Yes, we did. He went to Garçon a lot in the game. Garçon scored a touchdown on that screen pass, and there were other receptions of 20, 18, and I believe 22 yards.
And a good thing about the Washington Redskins, Chris, well, I can say good or bad, but we know you're not a Skins fan, but nonetheless, you can be objective as you can, and we know that you can. We talk in terms of how Shanahan has done the script for Robert Griffin III to come out and to perform to status. Have we seen the best that RG3 can do?
I don't think so. I would like to see a little bit more. Quite frankly, when you have a regular starter who's been around for a while, I think as many plays as Griffin got in that game would have been appropriate. But because he's a rookie, I think he should have gotten a lot more plays. But one thing he did do, he looked like a quarterback for the Redskins in that first game.
And that's a good thing about it. He looked like a quarterback. Redskins obviously actually had a depleted offensive line. We talk about two of the starters and Corey Liptensteiger, and we talk about Jamal Brown.
Yeah, Jamal Brown, I'm ready to cut loose with him. I don't know. This is now the third year in a Redskins uniform, and the first 2 years, the same hip problem has come back to haunt the offensive line, come back to haunt Jamal Brown. Lichtensteiger looks like he will be ready for the regular season. To mention what Chris just said, though, Robert Griffin III, if you really want to know what kind of quarterback he is, I think he's more of a passing quarterback than a running quarterback. He can use his legs. But just look at what Rex Grossman did when he came in after RG3.
Sexy Rex.
Yeah,
Sexless Rex. But nonetheless, you got to like what you see in RG3. Let's talk in terms of the rest of the offensive team. How did the offensive line look? And first, I'll start with you, Vincent.
The O-line at the first, the two series at the beginning of the game, they weren't doing too well. But the third series, they certainly improved, and they were able to get some points on the board. But the O-line is still a big question mark. I do see that the Redskins signed Jordan Black and a guy named Tony Mall to help out the offensive line. But they started slow but improved.
All right, let's talk about special teams, Afshin. How do you think they performed?
Well, they did all right for what they had to do, but obviously Brandon Branks is the big kick returner that they have, and he's going to have to make the team as a kick returner and wide receiver this year, though there are a lot more wide receivers on the depth chart, so I don't know what his status is going forward, but we shall see. But the big competition in the special teams is between Graham Gano and Neil Rackers, the two field goal kickers.
Well, let's hope one of those win, because historically, Skins have had a problem with kickers, right?
They have.
Of the season.
They have, and this year, I think thus far, before that first preseason game, I think they both were 11 for 14 in practice, so they're pretty even down the stretch.
But I think they like Gano. The thing about Gano, he misses some big kicks, but he doesn't miss by much, but he still misses. He's got a big leg. I think that's who they want to win the job, but Rackers has had, a pretty good career in terms of being consistent.
I agree with you, Chris. He did miss a small field goal, but he made the big ones.
All right, let's talk in terms of defensively. Defensively, Brian Arakpo said that the defense played good. At some points, they did look. I mean, they rose to the occasion. Actually, they looked sharp.
They sure did, Kevin. And the front seven is probably one of the best, on paper at least, in the NFC. Not the best, but one of the best. And when you have Arakpo and Ryan Kerrigan on the outside coming in on the quarterback, I think that they can really show some steam throughout the season. That Kerrigan kid looks like he's going to be something good.
All right, 3 games left in the preseason. We think that they're going to show more of what RG3 can do by the third game. And the reason being?
Well, one of the reasons is in the NFL, typically your third game of the preseason is when you have your starters play more quarters. So most of the time they go into the third quarter before they rest. And of course, this year the third game of the season is against the third game of the preseason, I should say, is against the Indianapolis Colts. And who do they have but Andrew Luck? So it might be kind of a tit for tat thing when they play each other. But most of the time, the third game is when your starters play most.
All right, let's talk in terms about how the Washington Redskins will fare against other teams in the NFC East. We got the Giants. We know that they're a sleeper team, but they're the best team last year. And then we have the Philadelphia Eagles. So much of that rides or could ride on the health of Michael Vick. And then, of course, we have the Dallas Cowboys. If you were a betting man, how would you think the Redskins would finish up?
Well, I think that the Redskins probably will finish a little bit better than last year's. What were they, 6-10, 5-11 last year? But they probably might get to 8 victories. I think Robert Griffin III, that's all you can expect from the young rookie. 8 wins, maybe.
All right.
I think they'll finish last in the division. I'm not Redskin hating per se, but I think they'll finish last just because I think with the defending Super Bowl champions in the division, I think Dallas will be better than they were last year, and I think Philadelphia is going to be something to contend with. So I think the Redskins probably in the division will maybe 1-5, 2-4, and that just is a matter with the other games in the conference and the interconference games, how they're going to do. But I think I like 6-10. I think they're more like that.
All right, Vincent.
I think you got to look at the quarterbacks. Eli Manning, out of all the quarterbacks in the East, is the number 1 quarterback. I look for the Giants to repeat. I look for the Redskins to improve. As Michael Vick goes and as Tony Romo go, that will determine what the Eagles and the Cowboys do. But I look for the Redskins to at least get 8 wins, possibly 9.
All right. So what you're saying in terms of Michael Vick, and I hear a theme going on here in terms of Philadelphia is concerned that without Michael Vick, you don't think that the Philadelphia Eagles have a snowball's chance in Haiti?
I don't think so.
I actually, even if Vick is hurt, I think they have a chance because I think the Eagles are going to really rally around because of what happened with Andy Reid's son. I think they're going to be an inspired football team this year, and even if Vick gets hurt,
that's a good point.
I think that they will be a team to be reckoned with in the division. In fact, I think they'll probably win the division.
They're certainly going to be more emotional, and I think even with or without Michael Vick, the one person that they're going to rely on a lot more this year than last year is LaShawn McCoy, and they're going to run the ball to the ground.
All right.
Remember, defense wins championships. That defense up in New York is still pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's why I call them the sleeper cell, because we all know that the Giants kind of start off the season kind of sleepy, but then as they get into it, they really become a force to reckon with. Let's talk about the NFL rule changes and the referee snafus that happened in the preseason game. I know, Afshin, we discussed about this on the podcast, which you can be heard on the Stitcher Radio Network, the award-winning Stitcher Radio Network at Stitcher.com, the nation's capital sports show. Let's get a little bit into it. Kind of an oddball situation with the Redskins.
Yeah, one of the incidents occurred in the Redskins-Buffalo game, the first preseason game, and Buffalo punted the ball to the Redskins, and it landed right about the 4 or 5 yard line, and immediately the official goes like this, which is touchback, meaning that you take it out to the 20. The ball only goes to the 20 if it goes into the end zone, but the ball landed at the 4 yard line, so Chan Gailey, the coach of the Buffalo Bills, had to use his challenge flag and waste a challenge, and they had to go to the replay booth. And, of course, Chan Gailey was right, and the Redskins started at their own 4.
All right, let's talk about the other one that happened down in Atlanta. But how did the Atlanta Falcons become the Arizona Cardinals? I mean, explain that one to us.
I don't know. That's certainly a blind eye by a blind judge, but they 2 penalties against Arizona, or 2 penalties, there I go, 2 penalties against Atlanta, and both times they referred to the Atlanta Falcons as one official as the Arizona Cardinals. Now, keep in mind that these officials, the Redskins game and in the Atlanta game, they came from the MEAC and the ECAC, respectively. So we've got issues right now with the officials and the unions.
Now, we may joke about this, Chris, but the bottom line is these guys need to be gone when season starts. And there's an underlying issue here in regards to what's going on with the real refs, the lack of money, or they can't come to an agreement, but they need to come to something very much soon.
Well, the NFL is always into this, just like with the players. They want a strong arm. I guess what I think is going to happen is probably the last preseason game they'll get in. The NFL refs knew what the rules are and everything, but I wanted to just touch on one thing, a change that I don't like that they're going to do this year, and that is on the replays, they're going to let the stadium see what the referee sees. And the problem I have with that is I can see where the fans could possibly influence the referee under the hood because they're seeing the exact same thing. I'm really going to be interested to see how many times when a call goes against the home team, I'll be interested to see how many times it's overturned.
But my friend, as Afshin would say, my friend, don't you like a game full of theatrics that brings up the emotion, a game changers such as that?
Not if I'm betting on it.
Stay away from the gambling table.
Now, here's another rule change that went into effect last year, and that was the placement of where they kick off from the ball. Now, the Redskins, actually not the Redskins, but the NFL did a study, and they said, since the placement of the ball had changed, their amount of concussions had went down. The year before, it was 273. Last year, it was 266. 8.8% decrease. You do the math. Not that much happening in returns to the concussions due to kickoffs.
Yeah, that's one of those things where, statistics lie and liars use statistics. I don't think that survey that the NFL did means that much. We're talking about the difference of 7, and it's probably as a result that, kicks didn't even come out of the end zone. But I don't think that makes much of a difference, really, Kevin.
And if we add that one in there for the start of this year, what Chad Johnson did, allegedly, that percentage probably went up. But I digress, Vincent.
I think what they need to consider is the playing surface. The kickoff rule, I think it's too early to tell. This has only been 1 year. I think those results from 1 year make it too early to tell. But I think they definitely need to consider these AstroTurf type surfaces that they're playing on, because the players are faster and bigger and the concussions are harder, and that ground is hard.
Yeah, and other changes that they made to protect the quarterback. In preseason, you can't hit the quarterback. And, of course, we know during the course of regular season, they have the two-a-days, or the two-a-days have changed. It's almost like one a day. Afshin, want to elaborate on that a little bit, man?
During mini camp and even through preseason, they've limited the full contact practices. OTAs, the organized team assignments, those are decreased from 14 to 10. And they've, of course, increased the number of days that players can actually have off. So the players will have a bit more days of vacation, among a whole lot of other things. And I think they only have one walkthrough per day, especially when it's really hot in some of the southern cities.
So my question to you guys, does these changes that they made, does it stretch out the players' healthiness during the course of the season, and does it expand their careers?
I don't know about expanding their careers, but I do think from a health standpoint, that's the thing, especially as they focus on things like concussions, because, we see the banging of heads and what have you on Sundays when they play. What we don't see, which has been reduced, is the banging of heads that goes on at practice, especially for the interior linemen. That's where you see a lot of these concussion issues. It's not a coincidence. A lot of these guys are on the offense and defensive lines that have had those problems.
All right, we're going to let Afshin have the last word on this.
Well, I completely agree, and I think that, it's not going to necessarily extend a career, but it'll do better for the game. I think in the kickoff situation, moving the kickoff mark, actually will still make that even more exciting, because I think a lot of players are going to want to run the ball out of the end zone anyway.
All right, thanks a lot, Afshin. I'm Kevin Juneau, along with Chris Jerry and Afshin Banab, and, of course, Vincent Charles. You're listening to the nation's capital sports show, where it's most definitely on. You can listen to us on the award-winning Stitcher Radio Network, or check out our fan books page on Facebook.com. All right, let's talk about the Olympics. It seems like 20 days ago we were here, and we talked about the start of the Olympics. Now we're talking about the ending of the Olympics. A lot of good things happened. I'm not talking about that Spice Girl concert. No, I'm not talking about that. And for those of you who are not old enough to figure out who the Spice Girls are, Google it, as my niece would say. All right, so we talk about the Olympics. We talk in terms of good stuff, in terms of Michael Phelps becoming the most winningest Olympian of medals. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean in my book that he's the best Olympian. Right. So the debate's going to start among the enthusiasts and among the sport Olympians. But nonetheless, I digress. A lot of good things happened. Katie Ziegler, locally, had a good outing. Didn't do it as much as we wanted her to do, but nonetheless, she stood tall in the midst of having the flu. We'll start with you, Afshin.
Yeah, she did. She stood tall, and she did what she had to do, and she was quite sick, actually, but she went out there and performed like a professional. One of the other local athletes I was really impressed with was Katie Ledecky, who is from Bethesda, Maryland, who won the 800 meters, and she's only 15 years old. And congratulations to her. So she'll probably be back in Rio, but she was the youngest person on the U.S. team. But the U.S. did a good job out in London. across the pond.
Yeah, across the Golden Pond.
Yes.
That's right.
They did a fantastic job, but I'm telling you, the highlight for me was the bolt.
The bowl. There you go.
Usain Bolt. I mean, that's the one thing I really wanted to see in the Olympics was the 100 and the way he blasted out of the starting blocks, and that was great. And also, you know, the U.S. women in both volleyball and basketball, you know, getting a gold, and it was capped off with the U.S. men, you know, getting a gold medal
And we
in the
had
basketball game.
we had one boxer that won a gold medal. That was pretty good. I mean, you
That's
gotta
right.
like that, man.
You got to like that.
Clarissa Shields.
That's right. Clarissa Shields won the gold medal in boxing. And of course, yeah, I agree. Usain Bolt also 100 and 200 meters back-to-back Olympics, which has never been done. Not Jesse Owens, not Carl Lewis.
And gentlemen, how can we forget Gabby Douglas?
Yeah, the flying squirrel, or I like to say she was simply gabulous because
right.
she performed well for her team.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I'm not hating. I think what Gabby did was great, but you know, it seemed a little bit like a kind of come down because she, at the beginning of the Olympics, she won the best all around, and then, you know, she got on the uneven bars and things fell apart. But she's still young. She's got Virginia Beach connections,
That's
so
right.
she's got some sort of local connections if 200 miles is local.
Well, the good thing about this is that she can improve she can practice now, and she can start practicing for the 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi, Russia.
Well, we actually have the
2016
2016
yeah,
and
exactly.
Rio.
There you go,
Was the winner
2016.
there,
Yeah.
but as long as she doesn't gain any weight, she'll be
That's
okay.
right. We'll see what she does, but
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised with how she performed well.
A lot of pomp and pageantry, but of course this Olympics was not without its pomp and circumstance or lack of circumstance. The United States allegedly accused China, one of the swimmers. They said, "You're doping,"
That's right. One of their young swimmers, Yu Shi Wen, who won.
but there was no proof of it.
No, there was no proof of it, and you know, if you don't have proof, I mean, I don't know what the U.S. was getting
I'll
about.
go harder than you. I think the coach of the U.S. was an idiot
was
for
gonna
even
say.
speaking up.
I
Because
was going to say,
had
yeah.
that been a U.S. swimmer that did
Exactly.
that, he would have been
That's right.
talking about how great she was. But because it was China, it was easy to take a shot. Let's talk
Right.
when she fails a test and not now.
Exactly,
That's
and that's the same thing we talked about on our podcast, Kevin, that I mentioned about Carl Lewis. Granted, he was a great gold medalist. He won a lot of medals, but to come out and say what he said about Usain Bolt, I thought was a bit hypocritical. Yeah, he has a right to his opinion, but it was still a bit hypocritical because of what he had gone through and all
That's
the
right.
doping as well.
And I agree with that. And once again, I'm going to say that he's entitled to his opinion.
He absolutely is,
All right.
but I think he's wrong.
Yeah, that's cool. And we can agree to disagree. That I'm not disagreeing
No,
with
no,
you,
I
but
know
I
that.
want to step
Yeah.
outside the box and give him his due because he is entitled to his
He
opinion,
absolutely
as
is.
Chris Jerry would say, at the end of
The
the day. All right, so we talk in terms of the Olympics. We got the Olympics coming up in 2016. That's the summer in Rio. And then, of course, we have 2014. Is that in
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 Sochi,
Russia.
Russia,
There we go.
the Winter Olympics, a little seaside resort on the Black Sea, south of Moscow, which is an amazing city from what I've heard. I've traveled all over the world. I've never been there, but they have the architecture like Greek and Roman architecture, all their buildings, and they have to build a lot of things. They're going to have to build quite a few venues to accommodate all these athletes.
Isn't that amazing, the amount of money, the infrastructure that comes in, that goes into building these Olympic villages? It completely just floors me, the amount of money. What happens to that stuff once they're done?
I don't know. Well, in the case what they said with England, that Eastern London, where they built most of that stuff, that was really a bad part of the city, and so that's helped that. But you know, it's not a coincidence that the two places that the Olympics have just made money hand over fist happened in '84 in Los Angeles and '96 in Atlanta, in part because we already got the facilities
That's right.
in place. We
That's
don't have
right.
to build a whole lot of them.
That's true.
That's true. Very true.
All right, so we talk in terms of the Olympics. Let's make a date for Rio. That's what I want to go, man.
I'm ready, man.
That's right.
2016.
Rio.
Hey, listen, they also have the World Cup in 2014.
All right, that'll be pretty
So
cool too.
Rio's going to be partying.
That's right. You hooligan, you. I'm
Yeah.
Kevin Gino, along with Vapshin Banat, Vincent Charles, and Chris Jerry. You're listening to the nation's capital sports show, where it's most definitely on. Coming up, we're going to be talking about, guess what? Guess what? Guess what? The Nationals. The Nationals.
Your
And
favorite team, Chris.
That's right.
Best team in
the
baseball.
best team. We can actually say the best team in baseball. Then, of course, we're going to be doing our feature called The Chatterbox. Folks, you don't want to miss this. This is the nation's capital sports show, where it's always on. We'll be right back.
At Arlington Independent Media. Volunteer producers of local television working together to bring the sights, sounds, people, places, and events of your community to you. Students of all ages and backgrounds learning the art and science of media production in hands-on workshops designed to empower and enable. Community leaders, friends, and neighbors gathering to discuss the critical issues that affect us all. More than 20,000 programs in the last 30 years produced by and for the Arlington community. A rich and diverse collection of independent voices building community. At Arlington Independent Media.
Welcome back to the nation's capital sports show, where it's most definitely on Arlington Independent Media. You can catch us on Comcast 69, of course, Files 38, also on the Stitcher Radio Network, the award-winning Stitcher Radio Network at Stitcher.com. Kevin Jeter, Afshin Bernard, Vincent Charles, Chris Cherry. Let's get at it, talking about what we enjoy, talking about the best and the most, and that's sports. Talking about our beloved Washington Nationals. That 8-game winning streak was ended for a while, but nonetheless, Steven Strasburg, of course, is 13-5. And, of course, Mike Rizzo, there's talk about making him executive of the year. His name is being thrown into the hat, but the season's not over yet, so that will not be determined until the end of the season. Let's start with Afshin.
Yeah, Steven Strasburg now 13-5, as you said, Kevin. The Nationals have the best record in Major League Baseball. Mike Rizzo, it looks like he's going to be up for Executive of the Year. I also like the guy for the Pittsburgh Pirates, Huntington, I think his name is. He's probably going to be in that conversation as well. But the Nationals are looking really good. The Atlanta Braves are not far behind. They are sticking true to their game, and they are, 4.5 games behind at this point.
That's right. If it wasn't for the Atlanta Braves, the Washington Nationals would be making all sorts of good stuff out of their division, but you need some competition. Unfortunately, Philadelphia, of course, they gave up their season. They conceded it. They traded away 2 of their centerpieces, so we don't have to worry about them visiting Nats Park anymore. Man, that was just completely disgusting. And then, of course, we have the Mets not doing pretty good. And then the team, Afshin, in which you thought that was going to do good, and that's Miami. They're like 51 wins. But what can you say, Chris?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I've got to say Washington, first in war, first in peace, and first in the National League East. But yeah, the season has turned out a lot better than I thought. I thought the Nationals would be a little bit better, but I thought the Philadelphia Phillies would probably be the one, ruling the roost that Miami would be at. But I'm happy that the Nats are up with the best record, and right now it's an impressive road trip that they had, and hopefully they can just keep it up, because you really do want to win the division, Kevin. You do not want to end up in that wild card position. And as good as the Nationals have played since the All-Star break, the fact that they really haven't distanced themselves from the Atlanta Braves, Vincent, that is a daunting task for them to try to complete.
That's right. Went early and went off, and that's how the record goes. Let's talk in terms of the Nationals and in terms of where they stand at in terms of Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper, we all know, Vincent, has been going through a little growing pain. He's in what we call a slump. He has the lowest batting percentage in Major League Baseball, between 173 to 193. He's just going through growing pains. And if he's a little bit more patient, I think he can get it. I think the youngsters is trying a little bit too hard.
Yes, he started off great, and that was nice to see. But we all know that he has the tools to be a major leaguer. He just has to take his time and be patient about learning the pitching. What he's doing now is he's learning how to be a major league hitter. And he has to be up on these pitchers. He has to study. And he has to give himself time to just, look for the right pitch. Don't be afraid to take a walk every now and then, and he'll do fine.
That's right. I agree. I think it's good that Davey Johnson did manage to give him the rest. And Chris, let me finish my point here first. Mm-hmm. I think Davey Johnson did manage to give him the rest, because you need to do that in order for him to rein it in just a little bit, because you got other individuals on the teams, such as you have Ryan Zimmerman, you have Jason Worth, and when you have individuals such as that caliber, you don't need to try as hard. Now go ahead, Chris.
Well, I was just going to say that he has been struggling, but it is kind of interesting that as he has started to struggle, Zimmerman has really taken off. and you got Harper batting in front of Zimmerman. So I wonder how much of that has to do if those two are interrelated.
Actually, I think that cortisone shot paid off.
Yeah, but
I'm joking, man.
But it's worn off now. But yeah, he's struggling. And you know what? I don't care if it's baseball, football, basketball. When major league teams start to get a tape on you and find out what you do good and what you don't do good, they're making an adjustment. I think that's what's hurting Bryce right now.
Yeah, you can obviously see it. Anything that's down, anything that's out, anything that's going into the dirt, I mean, he swings at, actually.
Yeah, there's quite a few things he's got to work on probably. Let's remember, he is still only 19 years old, and he's going to have to get out of this slump, and there could be something in his mechanics that somebody will find, such as Roger Bernardina has gotten a lighter bat from 34 to 31 ounces, has moved 1 inch closer to the home plate, and now he's batting like it's lights out. He's having a career 6 games all of a sudden, and he's playing great in the defensive outfield. So Bryce Harper will have to adjust, and he'll have to go through these lumps sometimes.
That's
it
right.
just happens.
Well, it happens to the best of major league players, as you guys know. I heard major league players actually refer to parts of the season mentally, how they prepare. They usually say they look at the season in 2 halves. They look at the season in the first half of the season. They don't concentrate on what's going to happen in the second half of the season, and they take the day-by-day approach. And when you do that, that kind of gets you mentally prepared so you don't have to be worried about the things that you can't control.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, it's 162 games, and you've got to be able to think in other kinds of ways, mentally prepare yourself once you get into the 100th, 101st, 102nd game, because it is such a long season over a 6-month period. You're playing literally day in and day out.
I think part of it too is, so many expectations were put on Harper. He came up early, 19 years old. He started good, but, it's the expectations probably too that are kind of wearing on him a little bit. And he is also very hard on himself. He is his worst critic.
Yeah, that's true. And we're going to let Chris have the last word.
Well, I was just going to say, but isn't it a good thing that as he slumped, and as what we're talking about is low batting average, the team has soared to get them to the best record in baseball?
And let's not forget, Jason Worth comes in off a major injury, and it's like he didn't miss a beat.
And we're going to let Afshin have the last one on that.
Okay.
Selective listening. But nonetheless, I digress here. Let's talk about the Chatterbox. For those of you who are new to the nation's capital sports show, the Chatterbox is something which we do quite pretty decent. And we talk about whatever's on our mind. And usually we rant and rave about it. And, it has no rhyme or reason, but we talk about sports. So I'm going to go first. And I'm going to talk about cards, the World Series of Poker. Who in the heck says that poker or any card playing is a sport? Really? Is it? I mean, come on now. 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night, I tuned to the sporting channel. Don't ask me what I'm still doing up at that time, but I see a bunch of guys, cigar smoking, toting guys. I'm already hating them already because they're making all this money playing cards. Cards is not a sport. It's almost as worse as Vincent saying, I listen to NASCAR on radio, and which he does, by the way.
I do.
No.
So that's my Chatterbox.
Well, I guess what you have in is late night sports programming. They have to find something in.
Yeah, but cards, come on, Chris.
Well,
hey, I mean, if you want to lull me to sleep, you can put on checkered too.
Well, what you got. What you got is anytime you got betting involved, and that's really what it's all about.
Well, here's an idea. Why not they create a separate cable channel and call it the Game of Chance, where you have checkers, you have poker, and that type of stuff. The only thing I like about it, of course, I don't mean to be sexist here, is scantily clad women.
Yeah, well, you can go to pool for that, I guess.
Oh, you can?
Yeah.
We need to tell Nina about that. So what is your Chatterbox, young man?
Well, Kevin, the thing I was thinking about today is, we're basically 2 weeks away from high school football season. And so, Afshin and I, we've got this long affair with high school football. And having grown up here in Northern Virginia, I've been following high school sports since the 60s. And in Northern Virginia, you basically have 3 classifications in the state of Virginia: AAA, AA, and single A. And what it looks like is about to happen is we're going to go from 3 classifications to 6 classifications, where we'll have 6A down to 1A. This is a move that basically is to kind of acquiesce to the smaller schools that are in the countryside because they've been complaining about travel. But what it will do is the 6A region, Northern Virginia, will be a powerhouse of the 6A. Yeah. For example, in football, Phoebus, who is, I guess they won 4 or 5 championships in AAA, they will have to fall all the way down to 4A. They won't even be able to play. And the other thing about this new rule, currently you can play up. If you're like a 2A side school, you can play up to 3A, but that is getting ready to change, and I'm kind of wondering how that's all going to work out.
Well, question for you: how would this skew the competition?
Well, I think it's just going to make, the bigger schools kind of stay amongst the others, because right now you've got 3 classifications and maybe 100, 120 schools per classification. And when you now change it, it'll be down to about 50 or 60 per classification.
Interesting.
Yeah, I agree. It's the bigger schools are going to probably just hang among each other for a while and see what happens first. Yeah, definitely.
What's your chatterbox, boys?
Mine, my friend. I want to talk about the Olympics, the spirit of the Olympics, the human nature of it. There are a lot of good things that happen in the Olympics. It's not all about just winning medals,
That's right.
In wrestling, for instance, the U.S. athlete Jordan Burroughs won the gold, and the Iranian athlete Sadegh Ghazari won the silver, and they embraced each other afterwards. Through political turmoil, political crisis, and all these wars, they were able to say, you know what, we're just 2 human beings who went out for the athletic competition, and we became friends. Karani James of Grenada won a big track meet, and Oscar Pistorius, he ran against him in the preliminaries. Pistorius had the 2 legs, and Karani James and Pistorius traded bibs. I just thought that was really what the Olympic spirit and human nature should really be about when you have 200 countries performing together like that.
Wow, I couldn't have said it any better. That's a good one. Wow.
That's nice and sportsmanship. That's what it's
Great
all about.
sportsmanship. Vincent, how about you?
Well, my chatterbox deals with Major League Baseball, and with the addition of the extra wild card team, I'm not in agreement with having a 1-game playoff between the 2 wild cards at the end of the season. I just think that should be a 3 to 5 game series. What do you guys think?
Well, I think this, if you're going to give a 3 to 5 game series between the 2 wild cards, are you prepared to give the other teams a whole week off?
No.
What are you going to do about it?
Well, it's possible it could only be 3, or they could start playing some of the other games at the same time.
Yeah, I want to see what happens if 3 non-division teams end up tied, and how are they going to figure that out? Maybe even 4 teams could end up tied outside winning the division. How are they going to figure the playoff situation out then?
Well, where I would disagree a little bit with you, Vincent, is I like the 1-game playoff. The one thing that baseball did, or they've been doing that I like, and they're getting into these other sports, is the playoffs are getting to be too long. And I like the fact that, what we're talking about now is a 1-game playoff. It's going to be 1 game between the 2 leagues. Do or die. You win or go home. That's the way it's going to be. The one thing I don't like about the new playoff system is just the fact that whoever wins the playoff game will get the first 2 games at home against the team with the best record in baseball or in that particular league.
All right, so we're going to let Chris have the last one on that, and it's pop quiz time. I got to cover this right here.
Here we go.
And this is locally, and you can play along too, as well as at home. What is the record of the Washington Mystics?
Oh, come on, man. I thought that's one of those, come on,
Time to go.
man. 4-14.
I think that's what they are too. 4. I was going to say 4 wins.
And you know what? 4-14.
Yeah.
We have something to admit.
Consent.
He looked off of my iPad, was watching sports,
see.
and he saw my research question. Well, Kevin, I just noticed the Washington Mystics they're 4-14. I was like, man, you figured out my question. But nonetheless, I digress. I got to have a harder one for you. Here's another one. When did Bryce Harper hit his last home run?
I don't remember the date. I remember the
August
team.
8th.
It was the Houston Astros. I don't remember the
I'm
date.
going to say August
Game is
8th.
right. Date's wrong.
I have no clue.
It was
Anyone,
Houston.
any of you guys know in the studio? No, clueless, and you're supposed to be national
Double
fans.
nickel?
Come on.
Come on, Craig Syfax. You don't know?
It was August the 10th against Houston.
August the 10th against Houston.
That's
Okay.
right. There you go.
It was against the Astros. I knew that.
Yeah.
Didn't
Yeah.
remember the date.
Well, actually, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
what can you say? All right, so let's go on to talk about our in brief segment, and let's talk about the NBA. Let's talk about that mega trade. Dwight Howard goes to LA. Actually,
The Orlando Magic, in a 4-team trade, finished in 4th place. That's all I can really say about that.
but
They got nothing in return. They had better options when Houston was offering them something. They had better options when the Brooklyn Nets were offering them something. They had quite a few good first-round picks. Now they've got middling first-round picks that they'll get.
funny you should say that, Chris. I didn't understand that. I mean, they didn't want Brooklyn to have the pick. I mean, was it so that they didn't want anybody on the East Coast to have Dwight Howard? Or Dwight Howard probably made up his mind anyway. I want to go to L.A. I didn't quite understand that, as Afshin alluded to, that whole circumstance that went down.
I believe with the speculation that has been reported in the media, that Orlando just said, you want to go to Brooklyn, we're not going to let you go to, but we're going to spite you. What they ended up doing was the classic cutting off their nose to spite their face. Orlando will be in the toilet for the next 5 to 6 years, I bet you.
All right, so now, Vincent, does this make L.A. a force, I should say, to be reckoned with?
I think it certainly does. He can only improve that team, and they were good to start with before they got him, and I think he's going to really make them a lot better team.
We have Steve Nash, who's 38. We have your favorite player from the Washington Wizards via Cleveland Cavs.
Oh, man.
Anton Jameson.
I'm Kobe is my man.
Anton Jameson holding up the fort or coming in. This could be conceivably their last type of hooray. Either they got to get this ring now, because if they don't, they're not going to finish off their NBA career in a blaze of glory.
Yeah, they got about a 2-year window to get 1 or 2 championships. Kobe probably won't re-up after another couple years because he's about at the end of his career.
But he would like number 6 before he leaves,
I think he would love to tie Michael Jordan.
And that's right. And Dwight Howard sticking up in the middle. I mean, wow, that's a force to be reckoned with.
We'll see how it works. It's got to work out on paper. Didn't work out on paper the first year for Miami, so keep that in mind, too.
Yeah, that's true, too. And then, of course, you have Oklahoma. We can't forget about Oklahoma. I mean, you're talking about a force to be reckoned with. You're talking about a bunch of young guys and that are eager, and they're going to get it right the second time around, I do believe. That's just my humble opinion.
Well, as you would say, that's your opinion, but you're entitled to
I'm
be
entitled
wrong.
to. Well,
so
are you hoping that the Wizards get it right?
No.
Are you talking about L.A. get it right?
I think
so
LA,
what's your humble opinion?
L.A., Miami. I'll call it right now. L.A. and Miami in the championship.
I'll call that too. I think L.A. is destined to beat Oklahoma City right now, and I think Steve Nash is the bigger reason that they're going to win.
Right.
I think
more
so
than
too.
Dwight Howard.
Oh, yeah.
But in all seriousness, I was kidding with you. I do believe that it's going to come down to Miami, and Miami's going to win it. I mean,
We got a long way to
Dynasty?
go.
We shall see.
I don't know about a dynasty though.
But it should be a good NBA season, and now what you've basically got are like 6 or 7 teams with really a majority of the stars, as we've seen with Miami, LA, Oklahoma City, a couple other teams in there. I don't know if that's good or bad for the NBA, Chris, but it will definitely be exciting at least this coming season.
Well, we hope that the Washington Wizards can improve their lot in life. We have John Wall saying that, hey, look at Chris rolling his eyes. John Wall is saying, hey, you know what? We are a force to be reckoned with too. I hate to sound like a cliche, but he obviously thinks that they have the team to go to the playoffs. Playoffs?
Yeah. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not on that Wall bandwagon at all. I just I hope they have a good season because it is one of the teams I root for locally, but I don't think they're going to do that much this year.
They'll win a few more games maybe than last year. It's pretty pathetic how the franchise has been.
But you got to like the lot in sports for this summer. The Washington Nationals came to fruition. They really did a good job. The boys up summer, holding up the fort. They're going to go to the playoffs. And the key is, that's what it's all about. Then we have the Washington Capitals, that stumble along and they go and make the playoffs. Now, if we can get the Redskins and if we can get the other team, the Mystics, how you guess that, man?
I don't know.
If we can get them all on the same schedule, we'll be doing good. I'm Kevin Jeter. For Afshin Bernard, Vincent Charles, and Chris Terry, we thank you for listening to the Nation's Capital Sports Show, where it's most definitely on. It's on Arlington Independent Media via Comcast 69 and Files 38. And you can listen to us on the award-winning Stitcher Radio Network at Stitcher.com. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you later.